Survey participants were asked to identify the top talent-related challenges that they expect their industry segment to experience over the next 5 years. Like the previous year's survey, the most significant talent issue cited was the great crew change, the retirement of key personnel expected in the near future. However, the second most significant talent-related issue this year is the industry's attractiveness to new entrants, and this is an encouraging trend. Obviously, this reflects the current down cycle, specifically in the US, and its effect on a change in career choices by new graduates and younger employees. Last year's industry attractiveness to new employees was listed as the 6th highest issue. Technical talents such as engineers and geoscientists, etc., have dropped from number 2 on last year's list to number 4 on this year's list.
Hi everyone, so here is our first poll question. I'll just get that up on the screen for you now. And the question is, does your organisation have a plan in place to mitigate the effects of a loss of experienced staff due to retirement? So all you need to do to take part in the poll is just to click on the screen. So the options are, we have a plan in place, I think there's a plan, and a plan is in place and is being executed. So once again, these poll questions are completely anonymous, so do get your answers in. I can see that people are voting at the moment, so I'll just give you a few more seconds. Okay, so let's close the poll and see the results. Okay, so it's pretty even actually. So 40% for both, we have no plan in place and I think there's a plan, and 20% of you are saying there's a plan in place and is being executed, so that's great. Okay, so I'll just hand back to Dave.
Those are very interesting results and very, very encouraging to see that there's a lot of you do actually have a plan in place. Very, very encouraging. So let's talk about this knowledge and skills that's going to walk out of the door or retire with your employees. So do you have a process in place to harvest valuable knowledge and learning from the experienced staff you're retiring? KBC's experience is that very few places do. They talk about doing it, but when you ask them about do they actually have a concrete method and process to do it, the answers we get are very, very vague. So is your current competency development and assurance systems and process able to cope with a possible flood of new hires? Are there qualified training people in place with a structured curriculum that is both practical and relevant? And a common mistake that we as consultants in the oil industry see is the promotion of technical experts into supervisory positions with very little or no soft skills training. For example, a panel or a console operator being promoted to a supervisory position because that's the next step in his career path. There's no process in place to identify those individuals who would make ideal supervisors. There are several risks in doing this. First of all, first risk is poor or non-existing team performance management. The second one is a breakdown in team morale. Third one is a loss of self-confidence for the supervisor as they struggle to deal with managing people as opposed to managing the plant. And the last one is a possible failure in the chain of command during an unplanned event due to the supervisor having a low self-confidence. Let's talk a little bit about APCs. They're great. They improve safety, efficiency, and yield. I previously worked at a refinery that was chosen to be the first refinery to have a Honeywell TDC 3000 installed. So I saw the advent of APCs and more recently multivariable process control systems, and so I understand the value. I've also seen the downside. For example, when APCs switch off either due to an instrument fault or a quality issue, the panel operators, because they've learned to operate the plant by association from an OTS rather than by understanding the fundamental operating principles, are unable to solve the problem. And lastly, the development of engineers, new hires and current, is also very, very important. They provide the backbone of your plant's technical knowledge, and so new hire and existing engineers should all have clearly defined developmental and training plans to ensure that they stay ahead of current technical advances. So hang on a minute. So what do you need to do to address this challenge? Develop your workforce and hence increase safety, production and profit, and get ahead of your competition. Firstly, you'll need to look into your current training and development program and see if a revamp or a remodel is called for to enable accelerated development. Then you need to capture and transfer operational and technical knowledge and experience to ensure that organizational knowledge is not lost with impending retirements. We'll discuss how to do this a bit later. Thirdly, you need to develop and maintain technical skills to drive process optimization and similarly develop supervisory skills to promote work team effectiveness. All of these activities are further complicated by local geographical issues, possibly multiple sites located remotely, so implementing these in a structured manner is critical and will ensure success, putting you ahead of your competition from a workforce development perspective. So let's look into these points in more detail. Fundamental things that you should consider when developing a training and development program. Adults are different. Yeah, we learn differently, we act differently, we do a whole lot of things differently to kids and students in college. Adults need to know that the training is related to their specific job. And allowing people to make mistakes within reason is an integral part of development. Adults also need to take responsibility for their own development. Organizations no longer have the time and resources to spoon-feed staff when it comes to training and development. Well-defined adult learning is problem-centered rather than content-centered. Adults need to understand the why. Why am I learning this, and why do we do this particular activity? They also respond better to internal motivation, and this tends to increase the older they get. They take the why and make it work for them. In regards to motivation, be aware that financial reward does not always produce the desired result. The graphic on your screen right now was developed based on the learning pyramid developed by the National Training Laboratory in Bethel, Maine in the US sometime in the 1960s. But it's still very, very relevant today. KBC's accelerated training approach, essentially a blended training approach, takes advantage of the adult learning principles and as such provides the best return on investment when developing staff. It is not only classroom based. A typical scenario would be a trainee carries out some self-study prior to a classroom session delivered by a qualified instructor who focuses only on the most important aspects of the training and answers trainees' questions. This could well be followed by some multimedia-based training and finally by some on-the-job coaching, which could include field trips, skills demonstrations, and/or simulations. A self-discovery guide should be developed to provide guidance to the trainee as well as provide a means of recording and monitoring progress. All of these methods combined help deliver a more complete learning experience to the trainee and more importantly involve the trainee throughout the process. This typically results in a higher level of knowledge and skills retention. Right, what you see on your screen now is an example on the right-hand side of a training pathway for an operator that KBC have developed for a client. One of the implications of the demographic trends I showed you earlier on is that many organizations are facing this large influx of new hire operators and engineers that need to be trained. Many organizations have found that traditional training programs that rely heavily on classroom training are not very effective in imparting skills and knowledge. KBC's accelerated operator development approach to training is driven by adult learning principles, as I said earlier on. These translate into the program design principles shown as described more fully in this slide. The field operator training pathway example on the right illustrates how these design principles are applied. The green boxes represent classroom training on targeted topics, with training material developed in full accordance to instructional system design principles that maximize training efficiency. The yellow boxes represent self-paced learning modules and relevant drills and skills and demonstrations that build on the classroom training topics. These modules help trainees to internalize the principles that are taught. Periodic reviews and assessments with supervisors and trainers are critical parts of the learning pathway to drive accountability and to develop the trainee's sense of self-efficiency. These are represented by the small green dots. Such training pathways have shown to significantly increase trainee engagement and trainee effectiveness. By imparting the necessary skills in an accelerated manner, the risk exposure of the plant is greatly reduced. Finally, having well-defined career pathways provides guidance and a future-based outlook for new as well as current hires whether they are operators or engineers. The career path should have defined minimum on-the-job duration specified to allow for experiential knowledge to be acquired. This is very important to ensure that the trainee acquires as much on-the-job working experience as possible before moving on to the next assignment. Once qualified, the trainee works the particular job for a predetermined time to ensure that this actually happens. The aim is to ensure maximum knowledge and skills retention before being reassigned.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, so let's go to our second poll question. And the question is, how confident are you that your current supervisors are competent to lead the organisation through a retirement transition? So the options are not confident, reasonably confident, or very confident. So once again, the results are completely anonymous, so please get your responses in. I can see everyone is voting, so I'll give you a couple more minutes. That question again, how confident are you that your current supervisors are competent to lead the organisation through a retirement transition? Okay, so let's see the results. Brilliant. 100% reasonably confident, that's good. Okay, so let's go back to Dave's presentation.
That's an interesting comment. 100% of you people are very happy that your supervisors are going to be able to manage this. That's very, very interesting. It's kind of doesn't quite gel with some of the hands-on experience myself and the other HPR consultants within KBC have had recently. So that's very, very interesting. This last little slide I popped up there now is an example of some of those accelerated development pathways. And just to show you that KBC not only focuses on field operators, we've also put these together for a host of different and critical jobs within in the refining context. Right, let's talk about how do we enrich this knowledge transfer and how do we harvest this information from these people that are either retiring or moving on because they're changing their career. So one mechanism that KBC has been using to great effect to enhance knowledge capture and transfer is the development and application of what we call situational documents. These documents are based on the traditional what-ifs type scenarios that could occur in your plant. The situationals are designed to facilitate the application of a structured problem-solving methodology and thereby reinforce the application of the underlying competencies. For illustration, the right side of the slide shows an example situational for a kerosene color off-spec problem. Step 1 in the troubleshooting process involves identifying the problem. In this case, the symptoms are described and all the known facts have been identified to frame the issue at hand. The trainee then follows the remaining steps as shown in the bottom left of the slide. These include determining the potential causes, narrowing down the possible causes, drawing some preliminary conclusions, and taking corrective action. By going through these standard troubleshooting analysis steps, the trainee is exposed to the various possibilities and verification methods that can be used to narrow down the likely root cause. Experienced operators often find it difficult to effectively document their knowledge and experience even when they are motivated to pass on their knowledge. One main reason is that they often deem their knowledge as anecdotal and they do not have a coherent way to document this information. Situational documents provide one avenue to effectively document operational knowledge and experience. Often experienced operators need such focused events to act as funnels and provide context before tacit knowledge can be effectively drawn out. By engaging experienced operators to develop the situational documents, operational knowledge and experience can be captured. Having documented the situationals, these documents then provide an intuitive structure that allows less experienced operators to follow the logic applied by the experienced operators. Situational documents have proven to be especially powerful when used for group sessions. By engaging a larger operational group to go through the troubleshooting steps, various anecdotal experiences, assumptions, and practices are often brought up for discussion. Such discussions often provide a richness that is missing in standard operating procedures.
Okay, time for another poll. And our question is, How well do your operations staff manage abnormal conditions? So unplanned events are not particularly handled well, unplanned events are reasonably well handled, or unplanned events are well handled. So get your votes in. That question again, how well do your operations staff manage abnormal conditions? Unplanned events are not particularly well handled, unplanned events are reasonably well handled, unplanned events are well handled. Okay, let's see the results. Okay, that's great. So 86% unplanned events are reasonably well handled. That's good. And 14% unplanned events are not particularly well handled. Okay, so I'll just hand back to Dave.
That's a very encouraging statistic. Glad to see that you people have the confidence in the fact that your people are being able to handle these unplanned incidents. That's very good. So let's talk a little bit about transitioning from training to the workplace. Very, very important transition. So learning pathways, such as the one shown previously, this determines to a large extent the degree of learning and retention by the trainees. However, this alone is not enough. We need to make sure that the new knowledge acquired translates into actual on-the-job behaviors that impact your business performance. Research has shown that trainee characteristics and the work environment impact heavily to the extent to which transfer of learning to the workplace takes place. Companies often invest in improving the training design but overlook the motivational and supervisory factors. Some of these levers are listed down the left-hand side of the slide. The activation of these levers often hinges on the supervisor's ability and motivation to coach the trainees. Training is not the sole responsibility of the training department. The supervisor's role is critical in activating these levers. So here is a question. Are your supervisors ready and willing to take on these performance conversations? In our experience, supervisors are more often than not require support in training themselves in order to enact these behaviors. Your supervisors are integral to the development of the trainees. No one has more interest in the competency of the team members than the supervisor, and they must support all training efforts and provide on-the-job coaching. Next, we'll discuss how to develop technical excellence within your organization. As shown on the left, while training components are similar to the ones shown for operational staff, the training and development of your technical engineers has a stronger emphasis on plant optimization, technical depth, and software application. A core defining feature of KBC's Technical Engineer Development Program is that it has a very strong on-the-job training emphasis that is often integrated with a profit improvement program. The skills developed are not only applied to daily activities such as plant monitoring, the trainees are challenged to apply these skills to more technically demanding tasks such as opportunity identification, development, and implementation. The trainees are put onto an assignment-based training path that provides purpose as it is linked directly to their job. It has structure and the necessary performance steps included to ensure that the trainee succeeds. This way, both your plant performance and your organizational technical capabilities are enhanced in a synergistic manner. So let's turn our attention back to the supervisor. The focus here is on soft skills and not hard technical skills. Research has shown that people leave their managers and not the companies. As I mentioned earlier, a common mistake that we as consultants in the industry see is the promotion of technical experts into supervisory positions with very little or no soft skills training. And the example I gave earlier on was a panel or a console operator being promoted to a supervisory position because that's the next step in his career path. And typically there is no process in place to identify those individuals who would make ideal supervisors. Your frontline supervisors and managers are the keystones to unlocking team performance. Being a good supervisor requires a whole different set of skills from technical competency and experience. Some of these skills are shown in the Supervising for Operational Excellence course content on the right-hand side of your screen. Just want to mention some of the subjects covered in the course. Number 3, understanding of human behavior. For supervisor, this is vitally important as we are all individuals and so respond differently to the same stimulus. Numbers 4 and 5, communication, problem solving, and decision-making skills are critical to the supervisor's role. Number 6, leading. This is something that most new supervisors struggle with, and quite honestly, not everyone is a born leader. Managing a team is one thing, and leading a team is totally something else. Number 9, this is the other aspect that supervisors, especially new supervisors, struggle with, and that is how to effectively manage their team members. In the current demographic landscape, supervisors can no longer rely on the vast experience pool of the senior operations and engineering staff. Instead, in most cases nowadays, they are faced with leading a team largely made up of young, less experienced staff. So, and as you said earlier on, it looks like most of you seem to be quite happy that your supervisors are up to the challenge. That's quite interesting. Next, I want to go through 2 brief case studies with you. The first one that's on your screen is this was a national oil company in Asia, and we helped them to design and develop a developmental program for their plant supervisors and their middle managers. The emphasis was to drive an operational excellence culture throughout the company. We adopted a very staged approach to this, and that started from program curriculum design and culminating the delivery and the support of an operational excellence academy. Similar to the learning pathways shown earlier, the program consisted of a series of classroom training, facilitated discussions, on-the-job application, and ongoing coaching modules. At the end of the pilot phase, the individual improvement initiatives identified totaled more than $6 million a year. The second one I want to discuss with you is with a Japanese client where KBC coupled a profit improvement program with a technical skills development program. Key activities included on-site brainstorming, simulation model development, and opportunity implementation support. In parallel with the profit improvement activities, technical training classes were held with ongoing support and coaching to enhance the workplace adoption. This led to improved refinery profit awareness culture and helped train their technical engineers on the fundamentals behind opportunity identification, evaluation, and implementation. And the implementation benefits more than paid for the entire program itself. So in conclusion, what do you need to do? You need to actively manage the demographic challenges that are being posed to us. So look ahead and act today. Act now. Do not wait for something to happen. Accelerate your staff's development through blended learning pathways. Capture and disseminate operating knowledge and experience through social learning activities. Develop internal technical expertise to support process optimization. And leverage on-the-job coaching to maximize transfer of learning and behavior change, and develop supervisory skills that drive work team effectiveness. So why KBC? Well, I hope we've given you a small taste of what we offer with some real life examples of how we benefited our clients. KBC is independent so can give a fresh and objective and external view to your organization. We have a proven methodology to identify, implement, and sustain performance enhancing ideas across all key disciplines with unique tool sets developed by ourselves, providing for site-wide analysis. We have unrivaled breadth and depth of experience, some of which has been demonstrated with our case studies, but we have many more with experienced KBC consultants becoming fully integrated with your team. Experience in change management in order to facilitate, implement, and sustain the programs, increasing commercial awareness, delivering best practices, and ultimately improving your operating profits. Finally, we have a proven track record with clear focus to improve profitability, having done this since 1979 through many market cycles.
Great, thanks Dave. So we're going to take some questions now. So please continue to send them through. We've got a couple already. So Dave, the first question to you is, in KBC's experience, how prevalent is the demographic issue?
Interesting. This phenomenon has been raised recently by clients in Asia, the US, and in the Middle East. The issues are all slightly different. In Asia, there tends to be an abundance of young graduates who are looking for employment, and some companies have, and some organizations in Asia have offered early retirement for their older staff in order to employ the graduates. In the US, the issue is primarily the planned retirement of the baby boomers, and in the Middle East, the issue tends to be twofold. Numerous refinery expansions and new builds drawing on an ever-reducing pool of experience and the desire to employ national citizens, which I think is quite the right thing to actually be doing.
Great, thank you. And the next question is, how much experience has KBC had in developing capability development and assurance systems for clients?
KBC have developed these systems for numerous clients in the US and in the Middle East. And these clients have included several oil majors specifically in the US, as well as several large national oil companies in the Middle East. I do have some further case studies which are available. If any of the attendees would like to request them, we can certainly email them on.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Dave. So that's all of our questions. If you do have any more questions, do feel free to email us after the webinar. The email address is answers@kbcat.com, and if you would like to see any of those case studies that Dave just mentioned, you can also use the email address for that. So I'd just like to thank Dave for presenting the webinar today, and thank you for attending. There is a short survey after this webinar. It's only 3 questions, so please give us our feedback on how you felt the webinar was today. So thanks again for attending, and we hope to see you on one of our webinars again soon.